All right, so we have with us Chelsea Schatz, who's the Ed Assistant and Sped Life Skills from Dundee Elementary and Newberg School District. Excited to hear your points about motivation. Learning Counsel has some of our own little inspection that we've also done, but we're going to let you sort of take it away, Chelsea. Share camera, share screen, however you'd like to.
Okay. Awesome. So as you guys can see, like Ed Assistant, so I am afforded the unique opportunity to work with a wide variety of students with a wide variety of needs. And this helps me to really explore the aspects of motivation on a more personal and individualized level. So in pre-COVID times, I ran mindfulness room for Dundee Elementary School, and then I did behavior intervention. So I would be helping out the young folks who were just struggling meeting whatever expectations they were having in class. Now my day is running about 10 small groups. Some days it's 11. And my morning focus is purely on social emotional skills. And then my afternoon has academic groups. So despite the different subjects and expectations, I've noticed that motivation does play a huge factor in how well my groups are doing, as I'm sure anybody who's done distance learning can say. Sometimes it's the lack of motivation for my students, but one thing that I've really had to acknowledge is that sometimes it's a lack of motivation from myself, and whether it be myself or the young people I serve, I know that it's truly intrinsic motivation is really what we want in remote learning, because we don't have a lot of those different aspects that we can control, right? It needs to be 100% student driven. And so I know I was sent a few questions. I prefer to do more of a conversational basis. That's what works best for me. So feel free to interrupt me at any point, but I'm just going to go ahead and go on with the questions. Does that sound good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And we're gonna also open up other people's mics too, so we can all be part of this conversation, because Chelsea, motivation is number one on our national surveys. It's huge. I'm going to share my camera too. The fact is we have some problems out there with kids getting engaged, and there are a lot of them, like San Juan Unified District said in our California event, it's a grief moment. There's a lot of grief. Actually, that's the emotion that that a lot of these kids are coming from. They're literally in grief and loss, and just, it's how do you get people from a point of literally crying to get into it, and learn? And some of the teachers are the same situation. So this motivation discussion, to us, we went down the road of, first of all, what do you mean by motivation, right? What do you mean? And because I think it starts with the human first. And what I'm hearing you already say is it starts at the hello. Are you with me? Right. And then it moves into let's maybe meander over to some actual academics, right? Yes. Honestly, when districts were calling us early on, what do we do? And I'm call roll call, get on video. That's the only thing you really need to do right now, is just be together. And we had superintendents tell us right off the bat, when they put the kindergartners together on video, the first time they just cried because they missed each other so much.
Yeah, sweet.
Right? Wow. So, if I was in kindergarten too, I'd be crying too.
Well, and it's super important, like you said, to acknowledge that 2020 was consistent trauma. Yeah. And even in Oregon, with the wildfires, with everything, the constant changes, that's a lot for anyone to deal with, especially young brains who don't necessarily have the words or the understanding of what's going on. And truly, as the adult in the space, a lot of times it is holding that space and recognizing, again, I have the privilege of having smaller groups. So the other day I had a kiddo who came in and just was I hate waggles, and was so just anti everything and over it. And I'm I just leveled with her. I was babe, I get it. I'm over it too. I understand this isn't fun. What else can we do today? Let's figure it out. Let's be together. Because truly, when we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if those base needs aren't met, if that need of like connection with other people isn't met, they're not going to achieve. They're not going to have the intrinsic motivation to learn. So like we got to take care of the people first.
Yeah, and I think that's true nationally.
Yes.
And I don't think it's going to be over for a long time.
No.
And I almost feel like that's the mode most schools should be in. Let's be human.
Mm-hmm.
At least 25% of the time, that's the only thing we worry about. And then the rest can be academics. Let's just get over ourselves. And I really want to go pound on some of the state governments, like, get off your standards right now. Like, just shut up about that. Because literally just getting any learning at all done right now with the trauma is cool. Like, let's just do what we can, like, get over ourselves. So
right. Well, and to mention, I know you say, and this is a motivation thing. So this was pre-COVID, but an instance where standardization and the way we are expecting kids to prove their knowledge. I had a kid who could not test, like anxiety breakdown. This is a 5th grader. And she's like, I'm stupid. I don't know how to read. And it's like, you're not stupid. You're not stupid at all. You just haven't learned the skills of reading yet. Like, that's on us to figure out how to help you. And sometimes we kind of beat it into kids that like they have to reach these milestones or they're less than. And that's just so anti what education is. So.
Yeah, I've heard many stories in this vein. It's interesting. So let me just go forward into some of the things that we're looking at and ask you as a current practitioner about them. And we're watching chat and for other people to engage and pipe up and make comments and whatever you want to do. But I'm going to share kind of what we originally were sharing on motivation. I don't want to get deep into it, but when we looked into motivation, one of the things we realized is we were hearing that some kids are responding to quarantines and distance learning differently, and they're actually more engaged, right? Like, they were the kids that never raised their hands, and the kids in the, the back of the room, you thought they were like never engaged. All of a sudden everything's online and they're like, they're like totally into it and it's awesome, right? And their achievement is skyrocketing. And then other kids of certain personality characteristics were in the background, like dying on the vine. They're like, I'm not going to play this game. I'm out. If it's not going to be social, I'm not doing it. So we started looking at what are those forces of motivation. And there's this guy, Richard Lavoie, who wrote this thing about, it's a while ago and he's no longer with us, but good book. And needs to, you need to forward your thinking into the current age a little bit. But he talked about the 8 different forces, which are really personality characteristics of people. And so we wanted to look at how technology could help you reach those different personality characteristics. And I'm not going to get totally into the characteristics. I want to be fast. And how you would use motivation. So projects motivate certain kinds of things. People being cool like Chelsea and being engaged and interested motivates certain kids. That means cameras on. Because some kids are only going to come because the cameras are on. And some states aren't even allowing all kids to have cameras on because they think it's an intrusion into the home. So, and praise, and of course, prizes and giving prestige. Like, we're going to have you run the Zoom meeting today, little Johnny. So you better be ready, because he's all like, oh, I am running the show. And then, of course, same thing with power, right? So, of course, you never share and label kids. But letting tech do that is not precise by a lot of teachers yet. So you can do some things with projects. Like, we just did a project before, which Jenny ran, which was fun, right? Like, that's like an online project we were doing together. And having a focus on people connection. Like, some places are letting kids have their own independent esports meetups. And Codesters has some stuff that goes on with groups in there. Giving prestige, like you talked about one program, I think you get little stars in Freckle. But Scholastic Digital has like little things that you win, and little explosions go off in the software. It's like, you're awesome. Thanks for getting, there's certain things that tech does for praises and prizes and giving students power in their social distance classroom. They have to have mics, sanitize them every time. and then things like new avatars and stuff like that. So we just looked at the challenge as what can tech do to help you motivate, but you have to use it appropriately. So I'm going to stop there and give it back to you and just say, you know, basically, what are you using? You know, what are you seeing? Are you seeing these different personalities emerge and what's happening?
I mean, definitely, just like you'd see the personalities in a daily basis, but it's more obvious because we got to figure out how to get them motivated in the online community. I've seen like the whole gambit between kids who have been just like from day one rocking and rolling. And a lot of those kids actually that I've noticed the improvement with were kids who struggled with the external stimuli of a classroom. So like by removing a lot of that, it's made it easier. Or one student who is on the spectrum and the ability for mom to mute the mic, and then he isn't leaving the classroom because of those moments. So that's been like a big improvement. But I think for me specifically, I have had to do a lot of like figuring out what works and getting into a role, because I have, you know, kids who haven't even learned any social emotional skills, whatever, to kids who I've had in school for like the past 4 years who are like a level ahead. And so I pretty much adapted a lot of the curriculums that I was given by like the teachers. So Mind Up is one that I use with my older kids, but we use it in an online setting, which has, again, been very difficult. If you can imagine doing smelling activities and tasting activities, and it puts, for some of those students, it's like that with that group of kids who are more independent and autonomous, I can say like, hey, this is what our activity is today. I'm going to send you a form and I want you to go find something yummy and really sit with that taste. And then they fill out the form and we can discuss it tomorrow. Because first trying to do it, hey, let's go do this, come back, there wasn't enough time. They couldn't remember if we did the activity the day before and had it. So like having those log of what they did made it really helpful to refer back to. And I use Google Slides. So I've turned myself into Steve from Blue's Clues. And I don't know can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take the screen. I'm going to stop.
So I will give you guys a teensy little example. How do you want to share? Let's just do my desktop. Okay, so can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, it's a little different for me because we use Google Meets rather than Zoom. So for my kiddos who came in super early, haven't had any sort of identifying of emotions or things like that, I started off with like the inside out clips. So then it starts like, hey, so how are you feeling today? Let's check in. We go by, everyone luckily has a different first initial. So I say like, oh, whose name begins with C? Chelsea's name begins with C. How are you feeling today? And then they'll say like, oh, I'm feeling happy. And I'll be like, oh, okay, perfect. You're feeling happy. Is this person happy? No, that's silly. That's disgust. Where's joy? Let's find joy. Is that joy? No, that person looks scared. There's joy. Oh, I got it right. Good. So it's things like that. And I know it may feel super stinking silly, but when you have these kids on there and they vibe with it, it's fun. So we always do, another thing I incorporate is like mindful moments. And again, I do mindfulness, but I have books that I use, and whether or not they are able to participate, we fully do the entire mindful like little moment. Usually it's like flap your wings like a bee. And so we do it together. And I think for a lot of those, because especially with our younger kids, they are super social and they need that movement. And I think that sort of brings them in. Again, this is another slide where I would do the same type of thing. Like, this baby is sad. The baby's crying. Look at that face. That looks like a frown. Where would the baby be? Would the baby be feeling disgust? No. Baby's feeling sad. Here's sad. And I even have built, so incorporating that and like from the guidance of the teacher, it's like it goes on. So now as they're needing more words and they have all these words, they have, I'm feeling grossed out, I'm scared, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry. Once they have that down, we built it into the zones. And so it's like, oh, this baby, we already said the baby is feeling happy. What zone would the baby be in? Is the baby in the blue zone? No, not the blue zone. The baby would be in the green zone. So that's just a bit of an example of how I utilize that. So
yeah, and you're making it fun, and it's probably age appropriate. Different ages are going to be different.
oh, for sure. I mean, that's definitely not something I would do with like a high school group. Maybe.
Yeah, so when I think about motivation right now and just looking at all the data, the kids that I'm most concerned about, the ones that are, they're checking out, are the ones that were typically affinity driven, meaning they're the most friendly kids. And not having the social construct means that there's meaninglessness in academics for them because they're engaged because they're buoyed up by the socialness of a school. And if that's not there, academics are null, right?
Yep.
And the same thing with the affiliation driven kid, right? They like to be affiliated with the groups, even if they're sort of quiet. The life force around them actually engage them, right? So when you're missing that, because everything's in distance, it means you got to try to create a socialness between the kids that's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to do online, right? Because you're the directing the learning and they're not like cross communicating behind your back like they did in classroom and in the hallway. So it's a little harder to create that. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. And then I think Deborah has her hand raised.
I feel like now they're just cross communicating directly in front of me instead of like
you're letting them. Tell me about that. So how do you let them do that?
It's, and especially with the younger ones, I think that a lot of this is their first introduction to what school may be like. And so I want it to be a positive social experience. So if I notice that they're wanting to share, we pause. It's a lot of giving them the grace and the time that it takes for them to get those needs met. And like I said, again, I have the unique ability and the time to do this. So I understand that may be difficult for some of us. But truly, like this morning, one of my kids brought a cat. And then the other one wanted their cat. And then I was like, well, if we're getting cats, then I'm going to go get my cat. And it's just going to take 10 minutes for us to start our day. And that's okay. That's just what it is that day. And I think a lot of times, like you're saying, you want to like go to the States and like lay off the standards. I feel like the standards put the pressure on the teachers to like get A, B, and C done. And I've just kind of, everyone who works with me closely knows that like, I'll get done what is appropriate to get done, and I will make sure that what gets done is done well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally love it. And I'm looking at a little chat thing now over here, Deborah. Deborah, you have to unmute and make your comment because that's like my favorite comment of the day. That would be me as a kid doing that. Go ahead, Deborah. Is it Deborah or is it wrong label? Go ahead.
It's Deborah. It won't let me open up my video, but I can unmute. Yeah, so to piggyback on what Chelsea said, the other day we started with a guinea pig and then we ended up with a guinea pig, a bunny rabbit, and a dog. But once all that was done, we could then re-engage with the learning. So I can't remember where I picked this up, Leilani, but there was a webinar that I went to that talked specifically about bringing in that social piece. Whether you're doing a lunch bunch or a virtual recess. So what I started is I host a Go Noodle dance party every Friday at lunch. It's open to the whole school, staff, brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles. I tell the kids that I'm trying to break the Google Meet, so let's get as many people on as we can. And so, yeah, I just started off with the kids that I work with. Now I have all the kindergarten classes. Our communication behavior academic room is coming in. So it's a lot of fun.
So how does that work? Does it play? Do you like play music and everybody dances to it, or what happens?
Yeah, so I am a Go Noodle ambassador. So Go Noodle is, one of those platforms that does movement and has all these different music and educational type videos with their own people. And yeah, so I create a Google Meet. I take a playlist the week before. So before they leave to keep things moving, they give me their request the week before for the following Friday. I go on a few minutes before it starts, and I just start playing my playlist with whoever shows up. And then once we get through the playlist, then I start taking requests for the next week.
I love it. I love it. I would be like, I would be so into being in the dance party of it all.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's a blast. It's a blast.
Yeah, because I have no pride, and I will I'll dance in front of anyone.
I miss Zumba. What can I say?
Yeah.
There you go.
We Go Noodle is super fun. All the kids showed up in the morning to our school, and so Wednesdays was our Go Noodle day, where I would pull the big projector screen and it would be like all 300 of us in the gym. I really miss that.
Okay, so I want to turn our attention and engage everybody else that's on the line, unmute at will. I want to talk about teacher motivation and go as long as we can discussing this, because this is really important to me. There's teachers that are broken, right now all across America. And you said something early on, Chelsea, like you had to get in your own space. Sometimes it's you. So how do you do this? How do you reset?
So I have an extensive experience with my own personal mental health journey that has provided me a lot of skills that I use for myself. But the biggest thing I think is just accepting the fact that we are going to be unmotivated. There's going to be a day that just sucks, and things are going to be hard. And it's okay when things are hard, and it's okay to not be perfect when we're having hard moments. I think being mindful of the ways that we are engaging and recognizing it. So when I was one of my students that I said, the cross talking right in front of me, when I felt
Oops, you cut out for a second there. I think we lost you, Chelsea. Doug, are you seeing a frozen screen? Yep. Chelsea, we lost you. Oh, there. Now you're back.
Do you hear me? Sorry,
yeah, now you're back.
I'm like in a dungeon. I started getting recurring headaches when we moved to online, and any physical hardship on us is going to make it hard to be motivated to do our jobs. And noticing that, hey, I haven't had recurring headaches before. I wonder what it is. Doing a little bit of research, I got some blue light blocking glasses that I can wear for a majority of my day. And so even those little things that we can start noticing about ourselves, we can advocate, communicate, fix, and then we will be better prepared to take on the day the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing that I've heard, and tell me if you guys are doing this and anybody else that's on the line, is a buddy system. Mm-hmm. So a lot of districts have told us that they've sort of implemented either like a buddy, everybody has a buddy, in subject, or and then up the chain of command, or they're assigned into little, you're the math cohort across all the schools in the district. Buddy up. You have to call and talk to at least one in your buddy network a day, so that everyone has a touchback, checking up on each other. How you doing? What's happening? Oh, you made lasagna. That's awesome. I wish I could come over. Those kinds of things are huge, right? Sharing recipes. Let's just make this personal. Because for one thing, cameras have gone into everybody's home all across America, even on national news. And so that's good, because we suddenly feel familiar, like we're all family. Like, I see your living room. I know where you live. You need to dust, right? So, stuff has happened. But those little things are good, right? So do you feel like sometimes that might be good, or are you doing that?
I definitely lean on my coworkers and my peers for social engagement. One thing that I noticed, and it might be a personal thing, but I got a little too comfortable in the whole distance environment to where I'm not an antisocial person, but I like to keep to myself. And I was starting to recognize that, like, hey, you're getting far too comfortable in your aloneness. And that's creating like a negative thought pattern about just like humans in general. So it's like making sure you reach out to like the people you love to, especially with like a lot of stuff going on in the news. The examples we see of people might be bombarded by that. And so we forget all the joy and the love and the laughter that things bring. And I think too, like, being able to share the shenanigans that happen in a virtual learning classroom. Like, I had a kid one time bring a snake in their mouth. Like, that's fun. And that's not something that I want to keep to myself. Like, those are things that help like connect us and be like, that's outrageous. What? And that happened tons. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I'm not even lying.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoa.
I've had chickens in my groups.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some things happening now where you got to kind of turn the news off. Like, I'm not allowed to watch the news. Cause I just go, yeah. There is this new thing, but here's the other thing about motivation. And again, weigh in if you're on the line, talk about this point. In terms of being motivated right now, what we've also had occur is when you were in school, somebody was directing you like mom did when you were little. Like when you were little, you got picked up and moved around and put in a bathtub and blah, blah, blah. And you were used to being directed, right? And it was almost seamless when you got to school. Somebody told you when you were allowed to go to the bathroom, when you did this, sit in that seat, raise your hand if you have a question, blah, 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 blah. So you were run. And now you're at home alone and you have to run your own time and you have to run yourself. And this autonomy, this autonomous action is kind of a new hat on most students who've never really, they just had to show up and their mom or dad dropped them off or they took the bus. And then after that, they were in like the swirl of all the other kids moving around. And it was just like, you know, but now it's a totally different thing. There's probably some gain from that forever.
Yeah.
But there's also some kids who still don't have the hang of it. What's your experience with that?
It's again, all over the place. Some who are just intrinsically motivated to do things and learn and get stuff done are going to be doing that. I've noticed that some of our kiddos who don't really are relying on their parents, and that's been hard on some of the parents as well. So that's like a hard system to navigate through, especially when, you know, you're sitting there with the parent and the student and having to help them best help their student, I guess is the only way I can put it. I think too, like you said, there is some gain from it. I think we need to focus truly moving forward on all the growth, like being put in these situations where even if they haven't done that great, they got like some doses of autonomy, independence, things like that, that are going to, those are skills that they need, like skills that I didn't have, skills why I only just now finished my bachelor's degree after 10 years. You know, those are things that like when they don't have those at a young age and then big hard things happen, they're not going to be prepared to cope with it. So I think it's important that they do get this kind of stuff, and really like we need to celebrate when they succeed, and we need to notice when they need a little bit more help and be there and give them the tools that they need.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we should leave people with this major thought that there is a sunny side to this cloud, and that we are getting gain in other things. Like we just said in the last session, first of all, learning has occurred. It didn't go completely dark. This would have happened pandemic wise 30 years ago. We would have been dark for a year. Nobody learning anything unless we shipped them books at home and had worksheets going back and forth, which Lord knows didn't really work, right? And this is a plus side too. This learning to be autonomously learning and, you know, drive yourself is a huge upside.
Yeah.
And so there is some silver lining to all this that now we can start using going forward. So I think we're sort of running down on this communication for, this whole thing for right now today. And it looks like some people are having to jump ship already.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that anybody else who wants to make a comment right now does so, but Chelsea and I are winding down. Chelsea, anything else you want to add about motivation and some tips?
I think for all of us, just be proud of all the growth that you've made. I mean, I've been pushed to do things that I don't think I would have ever done. Thankful for the moments that wouldn't have otherwise happened.
Yeah.
Seeing the love between a mom and her student who it's very impactful if you take the moment to appreciate it and really be hopeful for what the future holds for education. I think we're having to really confront the mental and social, emotional well-being of our students in a new light. And I hope that this moves forward. It's like we've highlighted the inequities and system failures, and it's made it impossible for even the most complacent of us in society to ignore. So it's a great moment to push to ensure that we really continue to shape these communities into the ones that our students deserve.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. There's pluses. Let's look at those. So I love this. I love this conversation. I love the way it went. And I'm glad we had it. It's a different take on motivation discussion than we've had with other regions that we've done these events for. So we're going to be signing off here. Erin, I know you're still on. We're going to be seeing you tomorrow. Super looking forward to that. And Chelsea, really good to have you join us today. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad I could just come in and let y'all know a little bit about my experience.
Yeah. Keep it up. Keep doing that with all the kiddos. Get the learning going.
Oh, hey there. As a teacher, I love my students and I want to see them all succeed. I've been looking for a way to accelerate their Lexile reading gains. But is there a literacy instruction solution out there that not only accelerates learning across subject areas, but is equally effective for all students, despite how complex and different their individual needs are? Take my class, for example. Alex gets frustrated because English is his second language. Sophia struggles to keep up with the class, shaking her confidence and making her hate reading. And James excels at reading, but seems to get bored when he isn't challenged enough. How they learn and grow now will have a massive impact on their futures. To be college and career ready, students need to read at the 1300 Lexile level. But by their senior year of high school, most read between a 910 and a 1210. Here to help is Achieve 3000. It's a literacy platform of solutions for all learners with the tools and content educators need for a precisely differentiated approach to instruction in science, social studies, and English language arts. So how does Achieve 3000 benefit students who learn at different paces in unique ways? It starts with a commitment to equity. Achieve 3000 delivers differentiated content and customizable support for linguistically diverse learners, from struggling to advanced. ESL students like Alex are given the support they need, and Sophia will not only catch up to her classmates but continually progress. Achieve 3000's just right, just on time methodology means an accelerated track to learning, where ongoing assessments continually monitor students' progress and give teachers like me real-time data on their development. As a student progresses from one reading level to the next, Achieve 3000's unique patented technology continually tailors content to their individual growth. Students who use Achieve 3000 can attain up to 3 times their expected Lexile gains over the course of a single school year. Achieve 3000 supports much deeper learning too, by pushing students to use critical thinking and reflection through fresh and engaging content. Learners like James, who already excel in reading, will also grow in their ability to synthesize and problem solve. The results are clear. Research rated strong by Evidence for ESSA has proven that Achieve 3000 positively affects students' performance on state assessments while increasing student engagement, participation, and confidence. On top of all of that, I love that Achieve 3000 is flexible and highly customizable. They have around 2 decades of experience partnering with every kind of district, school, and classroom. With the help of Achieve 3000, James, Sophia, and Alex are all bound for college and the careers of their dreams. And I have a real partner in the classroom to accelerate learning for all of my students.